My name is Jacob. I'm 37 years old, and I'm the CEO of a company. You must be surprised that my wife is pregnant with a child that isn't mine. But there's more to the story. And don't you want to know? I have plenty of money, but I've never been popular. Even so, there was a woman I wanted to spend my life with. Meeting Nancy was truly fateful. I met her at a mixer I attended for the first time, invited by a friend. She was my type, cute, beautiful, and a bit ditzy. I was immediately drawn to her. Looking back, it was love at first sight. I didn't know what to do at my first mixer, but my friend told me to flaunt that I was a CEO. Sure, flaunting that I was a CEO might attract women, but it felt desperate and I didn't like it. Still, I ended up doing it, thinking it was the only way to catch Nancy's attention. She talked to me about many things, and I was increasingly drawn to her. She seemed like the type who would be popular and was good at talking. After the mixer ended, I asked her out on dates multiple times, and she always agreed without looking annoyed. One day, I made up my mind and confessed, "I like you. Please go out with me."
Okay, but I have one dream. If you can make it come true, I'll go out with you.
Of course. What's your dream?
I want to have children early, so I want to think about getting married soon.
At the time, Nancy was in her mid-20s and still young, so I thought there was no need to rush. But Nancy's dream was also something I wanted, so I agreed without hesitation. After that, I was able to date Nancy, and I was very happy. About 3 months into our relationship, I proposed to Nancy. Seeing her unchanged cuteness, I wanted to make her happy for the rest of her life. Of course, Nancy accepted. I wanted to fulfill all of Nancy's wishes, and I devoted myself to her. However, that was the beginning of the tragedy.
If I'm going to be your wife, I want to always look cute. So can I have some money for beauty expenses?
When I asked what she meant, she said she wanted an allowance every month if we were to get married. We got married with the agreement that I would give her an allowance every month. Even so, after getting married, I was extremely happy. The neighbors said we were the ideal couple, and I was on top of the world. However, Nancy said something outrageous just before the wedding.
I have something to talk about.
Me too. It's thanks to you that we've come this far today. Thank you so much. You filled my life, which was all about work, with happiness.
I'm glad. I have something to say too.
Yay. What is it? I thought Nancy would say something like she was grateful or that she loved me.
I'm pregnant.
Really? Really? I'm so happy. For me, it was incredibly happy news. I was overjoyed that something so wonderful happened just before the wedding. However, Nancy looked at me and laughed, saying,
I'm sorry to ruin your joy, but it's not your child, Jacob.
"What do you mean? Whose child is it?" I was momentarily confused and didn't understand. If it's not my child, then whose child is it? Why can she say such a thing with a smile if it's not my child? I panicked and questioned her.
I've been getting an allowance from you every month to meet with Angus. You're always working. But Angus always tells me he loves me and that I'm beautiful. He's handsome and a wonderful person. It's his child.
Who is Angus? I struggled to stay calm.
So, after this wedding, I'm going to divorce you, Jacob. Living with you has been really painful. I want compensation for the pain and child support, $20,000.
Why should I pay?
Of course, you should. I pretended to be happily married to you while feeling pain, so it's only fair to pay for that. You should feel lucky to have had a marriage with someone as cute and beautiful as me.
What you're saying doesn't make sense. Think about it normally. You're the one who cheated and got pregnant. Why should I pay child support and alimony when I did nothing wrong?
Do you think saying that will make me understand? My marriage with you has been painful. I had less time to see Angus because of you. Finally, I can marry my true love. Don't stress me out when I'm pregnant.
Nancy kept saying unbelievable things. I was deeply shocked that Nancy was pregnant with another man's child and felt I couldn't continue our marriage. To my surprise, Angus was a host. I was even more confused. A host? What do you mean?
We always meet at his club.
What kind of club?
It's a host club, but it's Angus' club. But he promised to quit being a host and get a normal job if we get married. He loves me that much. He's incomparable to you, Jacob. He's great with women and very handsome. He's truly wonderful.
I thought Nancy probably didn't realize she was being deceived. Nancy was naive and not very smart. And now she wouldn't believe anything I said. Sure, I was sad that Nancy betrayed me, but knowing she was pregnant made me feel more like my love for her had cooled rather than just sadness. From that moment, I decided to get revenge on Nancy. Nancy seemed to trust Angus completely without any doubt. I understand that. It's normal to trust someone you love, but I didn't trust either Angus or Nancy at all. I suspected that the child Nancy was carrying was conceived during Angus' work and that he wasn't serious about her. And with these messy feelings, I faced the wedding day. During the wedding, Nancy was as usual. No, she was even more smiling than usual. I couldn't believe it, but I thought this would be the last time I'd be with Nancy, so I acted normally. For me, the memories with Nancy were treasures. The time spent with the most important person remained in my heart as memories, and I couldn't help but feel like crying. But I'm sure Nancy doesn't think that way. Thinking that, my sadness gradually turned into hatred. I had fulfilled all of Nancy's dreams until now. Even this wedding, I had prepared everything for her. I tried to fulfill everything she wanted, spending a lot of time and money, all for her smile. So why do I have to be driven into this situation? I was screaming that in my heart while greeting friends with a fake smile. I felt really sorry for everyone who came to celebrate us, but inside, my heart was raging like a storm. Why do I have to go through this? Since I found out that the child in Nancy's belly wasn't mine, that thought kept crossing my mind even during the wedding. Thinking that, I started to consider how to get revenge on Nancy. So I decided to consult my childhood friend, Peter. Peter was a friend who had connections in the loan shark industry and was knowledgeable about various industries. I thought Peter could find out about the real identity of Angus. Peter, long time no see. How have you been?
I've been good, but you don't look so well. What's up?
Yeah, actually, I called you today because I need a favor.
Tell me anything. If I can help, I will.
Encouraged by Peter's reliable words, I told him everything that had happened. Fortunately, when I looked at Nancy's phone, I found out Angus' full name, so I asked Peter to investigate his background.
Your Nancy is really incomprehensible, but I'm glad you told me. You should have known sooner.
Peter said that and started the investigation, and the results were beyond my imagination.
Angus is a host who seduces women, and there have been many victims so far. Nancy is probably one of them.
To my further surprise, Angus had borrowed a large amount of money from loan sharks under the names of his clients. Among them was Nancy's name. The money borrowed from loan sharks comes with enormous interest when repaid. The collection is strict, and they come to your house every day. But how did he borrow in Nancy's name?
She probably trusted Angus and gave him all her ID and stuff. What a fool.
A few days later, Nancy called me. The house, which seemed to be a new home, was spacious and newly built. I immediately realized that it was built with money borrowed from loan sharks. When I saw Nancy for the first time in a while, she was emaciated and had a pale face. She looked terrible.
Hey, what did you do? Because of you, loan sharks are coming to collect every day.
I didn't do anything. It's Angus's fault. Nancy had no idea that Angus was a host who seduced women and had a huge debt. I decided to expose everything. The Angus you're talking about is a famous host who seduces women. How could you not know that?
That's a lie. I don't believe it.
Peter also investigated. Your name was on the list. Nancy had no idea she was being deceived. She completely trusted Angus. Then Angus came back.
Hey, what's with the guys outside? Get rid of them quickly. That's my line. It's your fault, isn't it?
Angus looked at us with a twisted face.
Hey, why are you guys here?
I answered calmly. It's useless. I told Nancy everything you've been doing. Since she doesn't believe me, why don't you tell her yourself? Angus was silent for a moment, but then brazenly said,
What are you talking about?
Do I have to spell it out? I was irritated by his attitude. That you're a host who only seduces women, that you got a child from seducing, and that you still have many other partners. Also, that you borrow money from loan sharks under the names of your clients. Does that ring a bell? Angus looked surprised.
How do you know that?
I investigated. It was easy to find out.
Nancy, with tears in her eyes, asked Angus.
Is what they're saying true?
Angus answered coldly with a laugh.
My job is more important. It doesn't matter if I have a child or not, as long as I make sales. This house is also borrowed from loan sharks. Of course, it's under your name.
Hearing those words, she was stunned.
I haven't paid you a penny so far. Words like I love you are free. And you're the kind of person who gets happy with just those words.
I was utterly disgusted by Angus's words. Nancy turned pale and started crying.
How can I handle this? We have a baby on the way.
Angus coldly replied.
That's not my problem. You did this on your own.
The scene before me was pure chaos. But this was an issue between Nancy and Angus, and it had nothing to do with us. By the way, I told the loan sharks outside that although the name is under Nancy, the guarantor has been changed to Angus. Angus shouted with a mix of surprise and anger.
What are you talking about?
I'm just stating the obvious. Basically, if Nancy runs away, you will bear all the responsibility, Angus. But since you have the sales and you haven't paid a dime so far, you should be able to cover it.
You're the worst.
That's my line. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we have proof of your affair. Thanks to Peter, we will be claiming compensation from both of you. Angus and Nancy shouted in shock.
We're not paying any compensation. That's right. We have a child and debts to pay off from the loan sharks.
I don't care. That child isn't mine, so I'm not paying any child support. Nancy cried out.
That's too much. You loved me so much until now.
You're the one who betrayed me. Even if you beg for forgiveness, it's too late. Nancy and Angus started apologizing profusely.
We're sorry. We're sorry.
I coldly replied, it's a nice view, but we can't be together anymore. Goodbye.
Hey, aren't you going to forgive us?
What nonsense are you talking about? There's no way I would forgive you. With that, we left. The loan sharks outside were friends of Peter, and they had let us in smoothly after we explained the situation. Despite their tough appearance, they were actually good people. Thanks a lot for this. You really saved me.
I never thought Nancy was such a terrible person, and Angus was even worse.
Peter laughed and said, absolutely. It was beyond my imagination. In my line of work, I meet all kinds of people, but it's been a while since I met someone that bad. I'm glad you could rely on me, though I'd probably be scary if you were my enemy. I laughed and replied, I'm done with marriage. I'm back to being a workaholic. Later, I heard rumors about Nancy. Apparently, she was so infatuated with Angus that she didn't run away and started working at a nightclub. But she wasn't successful at all and became known as the dead lady in town. As for Angus, because I exposed the loan shark story and due to Peter's involvement, he was sued by the victims and driven out of town. Now, he's continuing his work as a host alone. Although I was deeply betrayed by Nancy, with Peter's help, I managed to get my revenge. I truly believe that having reliable friends is invaluable.